All right. So the class is called Grant Mastery, Unlocking Funding Success for Public Safety. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover four areas. What do you want? Typically, it's equipment, software, training, or some form of a service to help optimize your capabilities to run your organization. The next question, why do you want it? What problem is it going to solve? Is it going to save time? Is it going to save money? Is it going to reduce liability? Is it going to save lives? Those usually are the four areas that grants are designed to add value to a municipal public safety agency. And then the third is the how. How can you achieve it? What are the steps? What are the strategies? Where to look? We're going to cover all that today. And then a call to action, because I never give a class without leaving here with some action to take place to better help your organization. So let's talk about, what do you want? Public safety agencies, typically what they want when they come to my classes is one of the following: to add more value to their community than ever before. Then from there, it's consistent funding for solutions that serve the community or to solve problems that exist in their community. So the reality is, as an agency, you got a problem. There's X going on, and you're looking for a way to solve it by implementing Y. And we're gonna, and that's really the fundamental starting point with any grant. Is you have to have a problem, it has to be big enough, and you have to have a strategy that ultimately is going to solve it. So what do public safety businesses want? There might be a business in the room or coming in the room at some point. So typically businesses come to our class because they want to add more value to the market than ever before. They have created some form of a solution that they feel is going to save time or save money or reduce liability or save lives. And they want to see as many agencies have the opportunity to implement it if they see the same value. In talking to businesses, a lot of times they just want more leads too. As an end user, you're not going to start a conversation with a company that has a product or a service or software or training if you know there's no way you're going to be able to pay for it. So it's important to you that you actually know that it's a viable opportunity to get money to buy it. The other reason why public safety businesses come talk to my company is their pipeline. Sometimes they think they have a sales opportunity with an agency, and if you ask that agency, because of money, there's really no chance of them ever acquiring that solution. And then ultimately more sales. And more sales for a business means more end users have the solution they feel is going to solve their problems. So it's all about figuring out ways to best solve problems for, both you as an end user and as a business too. So from there, let's examine really the why. So why do you come to a class to learn about grant funding? The first reason is budgets. 90 to 98% of all your budgets go to payroll or gasoline. That leaves 2 to 10% for every part of your public safety agency. May it be in administrative, IT, training, operations, support services, you name it. You can get into the very specialized parts of an organization, may it be hazmat, EOD, SWAT. You're all fighting for that same 2 to 10%. And it's tough. I mean, I remember when I first got in the industry, I was selling SWAT gear. I would get a fax at the time from an agency, and they would want me to quote on 30 items. Being new to the industry, I thought I was going to sell all 30 items. The reality is those 30 items need to go in front of a decision maker, and that decision maker decides on how many of those 30 actually are going to get bought with budget. Usually at best it was 1 or 2. So budgets being what they are, that's half the problem. The other half the problem I see nowadays is a lot of bureaucratic red tape. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying what I see. And what I see is elected officials, they want to say on what public safety agencies want to purchase. And so what that means is that the elected official is going to review the project and decide, okay, this is something we feel is in the best interest of our community to pursue, to get money to buy, or we don't feel it's in the best interest. And so nowadays you have civilians making decisions on how public safety does their job when they've never done public safety's job. So it creates a little bit of a challenge because I came in this industry never doing public safety work. I was selling SWAT gear for 5.5 years. Prior to that, I was a headhunter. So I never was a cop. I was never in the military. I was never in the fire service or EMS. And I'm going in front of agencies selling solutions when most of the people that were doing my job actually did the job before. So it was very much a challenge. So what we ended up doing is, as a company, training me on understanding the nuances of product and then letting the agency T&E, test and evaluate. Nowadays, elected officials that have never done your job more often than not are going to tell you what you should have and why you should have it. Not saying it's right or wrong, just saying that's what the landscape has looked like. And it's looked like that for almost 15 years now. All right, so now public safety businesses, they experience the following problems as well. It's a long sales process. It takes on average 6 months to 2 years for an agency to be able to purchase almost anything nowadays. And I'm talking about anything 4 figures or more. So if the project is in the 4-figure range and up, you're looking at a 6 month to 2 year time frame that's going to take to get the money to buy. So it's long. It's a long process for the end user, long process for the business. The reality is, a business or an end user, if they're talking today, they want to solve a problem that's going on today, not something 6 months or 2 years down the road. They want to solve it now. Again, the elected officials, they vote on average 5 to 7 times on a purchase. So they'll vote to pursue a project. They'll vote to pursue a grant. They'll vote to approve submitting the grant. They'll vote to approve the awarding of the grant if it's awarded. They'll approve to accept the money. They'll approve to put it out to a bid, and then they will approve the winning bid. And then they'll approve cutting the PO. So you're looking on average 5 to 7 times they're going to vote. They don't meet every day. They meet monthly. So there's 5 to 7 months right there on average of why this project takes so long to get funded. I'm going to teach you strategies today to cut that time down. The other reason is, the problems that the public safety businesses see is meaningful and productive conversations. So I don't know if a lot of you go to trade shows, but if you do, I'm sure you've walked the floor. You see a lot of different products, a lot of different software, a lot of different training organizations. Some you might have conversations with, some you might not. And the reality I've learned on walking a show and working in a booth is if you don't have money, you're not going to stop and talk to someone about something. Typically, you're going to just walk through and go talk to the people that you have the money for. And I always tell businesses, you need to understand that the problem you have as a trade show vendor isn't the conversations you're having. It's the ones with the people walking by, looking at what you have, not stopping to talk to you, and then walking on by. So if you can offer as a business grants and funding, then you're going to have more conversations. And I have a formula, and the formula is simple. End users plus needs minus fundings equals less conversations, whereas end users plus needs plus funding equals more conversations. And that's what we want. We want you as an end user to have more conversations with businesses to solve problems that currently you're facing. And then the last thing is as a business, they don't understand that they're selling to a market that doesn't know when it's going to have funding. And because of that, they don't know as a business, when do we buy materials? When do we start building product and putting it on shelves? So that creates a material and supply chain issue problem. And we're still in this problem. We've been in this supply chain problem now for a little bit over a year. And it's taking a long time for companies to be able to have solutions for agencies. And if you're an agency, usually you need that solution as soon as possible. And sometimes your funding will dictate that you have to have the solution at a certain time, or else you're going to lose the money. So what I do as a company is I want to connect these dots and solve as many of these problems for everybody. So how do we do that? How do you achieve solving this problem? And really, it's three areas. It's psychology, strategies, and a grant writing mindset. Now, a lot of times people come to my class and they think they're going to hear this magic answer. I'm going to have this grant that's going to be perfect, that's going to work 100% of the time. And in 16 years of running my business, I've learned that these three areas, psychology, strategies, and grant writing mindset, are the biggest disconnects and gaps. So if you can fill one or all these gaps, you're going to get more grant funding. And if you're a business and you understand these three gaps and are able to show how you can help solve them, you're going to sell more solutions. So let's dig into psychology. Big picture. Number one's goal setting. A lot of times people are good at setting goals in their business. Sometimes people are really good at setting goals in their life. Sometimes people have never set a goal consciously. Maybe they've had an idea of something they wanted to do, but they didn't actually set a goal for it. And I'm telling you right now, when you want to get grants and you want to get funding for projects, you need to be good at goal setting. Clearly defining your goals and breaking them down into specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, otherwise known as SMART goals. And one of the things that I recommend you do is take some notes and Google some of this information to get more familiar with it if you're not as familiar with some of these terms I'm going to use. And one of them is SMART goals. SMART goals help create a framework for you to achieve your outcomes, if you will. But these goals or objectives using specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound is going to provide a framework for your efforts. So get good at setting goals. What do you want? Why do you want it? And steps to take to achieve it. Second is planning and organization. You need to develop a well-structured plan, and organizing your tasks and resources effectively. That's going to enhance your productivity and efficiency. So again, writing things out, journal what you want, why you want it, and how you can get it. And don't think you have to be perfect. Your how might be right 10% of the time. It might be wrong 90% of the time. It doesn't matter. What matters is when you're right, how it's working, where is it taking you, and how you can adjust or modify. Three is time management. Time management is a big thing. When I talk to agencies about grants and working on grants, one of the most common things I hear from a public safety agency is I don't have time. And I get it. You didn't sign up to do your job to write grants for a living. It's come with the job. You wear many hats at times. Some of you wear multiple hats. And so it's like, all right, I don't know how I'm going to get time to do something. So time management really means prioritizing tasks, managing distractions, and allocating time appropriately to different activities. That's going to help you progress toward your goals. So think of it this way. The best advice I can give when it comes to working on a grant is the following. If you are going to be writing the grant and you're going to be pursuing the grant, find ways to speed up your process to finding the grants and set aside 10 to 15 minutes a day to work on grants, to work on your grant projects. 10 to 15 minutes a day. If you could set aside 10 to 15 minutes a day, that's going to get you a little bit over an hour a week if it's 15 minutes. If it's less, if it's 10 minutes, it's almost an hour a week. But literally over a 4 to 6 week span, By the end of that 6 weeks, if you just take and work a little bit on that grant each day, you will have a grant strong enough to submit. And the odds of getting it funded are extremely high. And all it takes 10 to 15 minutes a day. It's just a matter of carving out that time. Maybe it's at the beginning of the day before things get too crazy. Maybe it's at the end of the day when you're winding your day down. I don't know. And maybe it's during your lunch hour, if you have a lunch hour. Sometimes you're on the go, and lunch hour, you got to, you're working and eating. Carve out 10 to 15 minutes a day. If you do that over 4 to 6 weeks, I guarantee you're going to have something that's going to be worth submitting. So now let's talk about identifying grants. Now, the next couple slides, screen capture. If you want, take a picture with your phone. If you have the ability to screen capture on your desktop, do that. But these are grants I want you to think about. And some of these grants are going to be more for fire and EMS. Some of them are going to be more for law enforcement. Some are going to be for more emergency management. Some are going to be for all aspects of public safety. But these are the 5 hottest federal grants that I see right now in the marketplace. One is AFG. And AFG just closed a little while, but a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago now. AFG is always a grant. If you're a fire or EMS organization, you should be applying for every month. Every month you should apply for that grant. And the reason being is the more you apply for that grant, you're going to get better at that process. It's a very detailed process. It's probably one of the more challenging grants out of all of them. I want to say 1 out of 5 get actually approved. It's evaluated by your peers. But the good news is this: they have a training program that will teach you how to play that game. And not only do they have a training program, but they have a very good support system that's regionally based. So I would recommend, if you're not applying for that grant every year as an EMS or a fire department, you need to be. On the law enforcement side, COPS grant, community policing grants, they're there to reduce crime, improve public safety, better policing efforts. Sometimes you can get equipment. A lot of times you can get structure or training, but COPS grants are available typically every year. You got to sign up for the COPS grant to get notifications via email. Some of those COPS grants are at the state level. Some are at the federal level. The state ones come to the federal level as well. So, it's going to vary, but you have to you want to make sure you are focusing on where these grants are. And that's a key. Then from there, emergency management performance grants. And those, sometimes the products fit that. Even if you're a police department or a fire department, some products that you want to purchase can actually be pursued through the emergency management performance grant. And before we go, I'm going to give you a link of where to go so you can figure out, okay, does this type of product fit what type of grant? But emergency management performance grants, think of them as an umbrella. And under that umbrella is fire, EMS, and law enforcement. So those are grants that are about planning or training, exercises, activities to prepare and respond to a hazard. May it be a man-made hazard or a natural hazard. Then there's a Homeland Security Grant Program. That's an umbrella for UASI, Urban Area Security Initiative, State Homeland Security Grant, Operation Stone Garden. Those 3, it's about it's over the last 20 years, I've seen it as high as $4 billion when it started. Right now, it's probably somewhere between $1 and $2 billion a year. But that is a grant for acts of terrorism, other disasters. It's about prevention, protection, responding, and recover. So if you have a project that's about preventing an event, protecting if an event's happening, or responding to an event to solve a problem, or recovering after an event, it's going to fit that program. That program typically gets funneled through the states. The states get the money first, and then they set up programs where you would apply through the state. So with any of these grants, I would Google them, and I would Google them with your state name. So example, I'm in Illinois, so I would do Illinois, Assistance of Firefighters Grant Program. See where it takes me. Or Illinois Community Oriented Policing Services Grant, or Illinois Emergency Management Performance Grant, or Illinois Homeland Security Grant Program. And that's going to take you to the appropriate spot. Last is Justice Assistance Grant. And that grant is a formula grant that you would, as a municipality, would send in your information based on your crime, your population data. They have a formula. They figure out how much money you're going to get, and you get an X amount of money. I've seen it as low as the 4 figures. I've seen it in $1 million range, so 7 figures. Depends on the size of your agency. You can use that for a lot of different stuff. You know, you can use it for crime prevention, technology improvements. I've seen it used for staffing. There's always this back and forth. Can you use it for staffing? Can you not? It varies. I've seen agencies hire people with that. I've heard of agencies that couldn't hire people with that justice assistance grant. So you have to really understand what are the rules for the justice assistance grant for your state. But justice assistance either goes directly to your community or it goes to the state, and then the state identifies 5 or 10 problem areas that you could apply to the state to get a piece of the state justice assistance grant information. I didn't mention before, I'm going to answer all questions too at the end of this class. So please feel free to put questions in the chat as you have them. But before I go on to this next tab, take a picture of this page, because these are the 5 most popular grants that I see right now. And this is going to change from month to month. So we always are tracking and seeing what new grants are out there. So let's go on to the next one. Actually, we got some more grants we're going to cover. Transit Security Grant Program. So if you have a transit system that goes through your community, you can apply for the Transit Security Grant Program. Then they have the Burn Criminal Justice Innovation Program. Again, this is about crime reduction, community safing, but it's innovative approaches, which could be strategies, and it could be strategies tied to technology. So that's another one to think about. We have the School Violence Grant Program, or the Stop School Violence Grant Program. That's about security infrastructure, implementing thrust assessments, figuring out what's a challenge, what's not a challenge, intervention programs that help solve those problems before they happen, safety coordination amongst the agencies and the school. A lot of security programs I see going through that program. Hazard mitigation assistance. This is about projects to reduce risk and the impact of future disasters. So this is a preparedness grant. So maybe you had an incident that was X and it created Y of a problem. The hazardous mitigation assistance would be program Z to solve it. So that's how you got to think. So it could be a disaster like a tornado or a wildland fire. It could also be a mass shooting. I mean, disasters are man-made and natural. So you have to think both ways. Then lastly, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration grant. This is about abuse of substances, mental health issues. I see this program sometimes specifically for the public safety agency. A lot of times I see it for the community if they've identified that there's a lot of issues in their community with mental health or substance abuse. So now I want to talk about private. Now, private grants are a little bit different, and private grants are very much untapped. They're my favorite source of funding for public safety. And the reason being is a lot less red tape. They're about 1/10 of the work of a federal grant. So if you've applied for, let's say, AFG as an example, it's a pretty extensive project. Community grants, manufacturing grants, any grant listed on this page, 1/10 or 10% of the work. That's number one. Number two reason why I like private grants, the money more often than not goes right to your agency or right to the team in your agency. So example, if you're on the hazmat team and you want to get private money and you're awarded a grant for your project, that money, that check specifically is written to your agency, to your team, and you get the money and you can spend it quicker. It doesn't get caught up in government voting on it, deciding what to do with it. It goes right to you. Third reason why I like private money. It's about solving problems in your backyard. It's about relationships, not just one time, but a long-term relationship. You can form relationships with any of these areas in your community and go back to them year after year after year, because most of these organizations have people that live in the community that you protect. They have workers, customers. They're all in that community sometimes. These organizations also want a write-off, or because of how they've been created, they have to give away X amount of money and they give it away regionally. So let's start off with community foundations. These work like private equity firms, and what they do is they raise money within a community. It could be one county or a cluster of counties. The money they raise is from the businesses and the individuals that live in that community. The foundation then reinvests the money and grows the funds. And then by law, because they're a community foundation, they have to give away 5% every year. So when I hear percents, I always say 5% of what? There are, if you add up all the community foundations in the country, there's probably close to 1,500 of them. And there's probably 700 or so that have websites. I track the ones with the websites because if they have a website, to me, I think they're a little more structured and I think they could do a little more help to the community. And if you add up all the money they have close to $50 billion in assets. 50 billion with a B. They have to give away 5% of that 50 billion. That's $2.5 billion they give away every year. 2.5 billion. So when you think of it that way, it's twice as big as the state Homeland Security or the Homeland Security Grant Program. AFG is about $400 to $500 million a year, depending on which year it is. That's 5 times more than that. And they are set up to where they will service local needs. So there are some foundations that will service one county, depending on population. There are other community foundations that might service 5 or 20 or 25 counties. The best way to find out where your community foundation is Google your county's name, community foundation. So example, I live in St. Charles, Illinois. That's in Kane, Kane County, Illinois. So I would Google Kane County, Illinois Community Foundation, and one of the first pages will have my community foundation on it. And that's a foundation that if you're an agency, you need to start building a relationship with them. I see a lot of volunteer organizations do a good job of building relationships with foundations like this. I don't see enough of it. Maybe 1 to 2% of the market understands the value of a long-term relationship with a community foundation where you can go back to them year after year after year. These community foundations have multiple funding channels. Some of them have 5, some have 10. I've seen some have 20 or more funding channels. When you talk to these foundations, they will figure out what's the best funding channel for what you do. And if they don't have one, they'll actually go out and establish one for you if they feel your projects are sound, viable, and compelling. So I love community foundations. They're my favorite. Manufacturing. If you have a manufacturer in your community, they will fund projects to help public safety improve and enhance their capabilities. Why? They're soft targets. They have a lot of items on their premises that if it got in the wrong hands or if they had some type of an accident, they're going to need support from the public safety agency. So it's in their best interest to make sure you have everything you need to take care of them. Their workers might live in the community. Their customers probably live in your community. So they want to take care of them and they want the write-off. They get a tax break. So if they give money back to their community where they do business or where they operate from, they get a nice write-off and they're happy too. So build relationships. Every manufacturing company has some type of a community impact program or community investment program. Get to know those local manufacturers in your community if you have them. Public or private charities. The most famous one is Gary Sinise's foundation. Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump has set up a foundation where he raises money for soldiers coming back from theater, public safety agencies, individuals that work in public safety that maybe have PTSD. He does a lot to give back to the public safety market. You can apply for grants. I've seen him fund 5 to 6 figure projects for public safety. Public safety foundations. If you do not have a foundation set up for your community, set one up. If you need help, let us know. We can give you people to talk to that specialize in setting up foundations. The foundation can go out and raise money for you. The foundation can go out and not only raise money, but buy the assets and donate the assets to your organization. They can work with those community foundations. They can go work with those manufacturers. They can go work with the charities, building that relationship and raising money for your projects. And they will work on projects that are this year, next year, the year after. So have a foundation set up and work with them on how to fill those funding gaps that you're currently experiencing at your agency. Last but not least, service companies, electric companies, gas companies, water companies, insurance companies, banks, restaurants, service companies that do business in your community have money set aside to give back to your community, and they want the write-off, obviously. They want to protect their workers and they want to protect their customers. They'll work with you guys on your projects. A lot of times you have to go to the corporate level, but you can always start by conversations at the branch level. But I would do both, because you might hear one thing at a branch and what you hear at the corporate level is going to be different. So you want to communicate with both, but build relationships based on what you're looking to do and the value it's going to add that service company. It's all about creating win-wins, value for them, value for you. But these are the 5 areas of private funding that I love, because every community has one or more of these in it. Build that relationship. State programs. So these are really the best places to go to find out where are there state grants for your organization. So the state Homeland Security offices in your state. So in Illinois, I would go to the Illinois State Homeland Security Office. I'd Google that, find the link to the state webpage that has that. Their job is to enhance emergency preparedness, response capabilities, infrastructure security, making the state a much safer place for the citizens to live. You can also go to your state emergency management agency. They're going to be more about disaster support and response and recovery, improving systems for emergency management and community resilience. So floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, whatever it is, that's a good place to go for projects like that. But what you want to do when you go to these places, if they have email alerts, sign up for them. Sign up for those email alerts so that way you're notified when certain funding opportunities come up immediately. Your state criminal justice commissions or state criminal justice agencies. They'll fund equipment, training, policing initiatives, crime prevention efforts. They're all about closing those gaps as well. State Fire Marshal Office. They're about equipment upgrades for the fire side, for training, especially for campaigns, outreach, building relationships with the community. Every state's going to have at least one or more of these. So you want to find out where are these, build a spreadsheet so you have the links, and you're going to want to check these out. If you could sign for email alerts, ideal. I'd still go to these sites at least once a month and take a look at them. Other places to go. State Department of Transportation. It's all about highway safety for police and fire. I'm seeing Jaws of Life just as much as radar machines being purchased through the Department of Transportation, because it's about roadway safety, roadway response, initiatives, anything that's going to keep the people on the road is safe or if there's an event, they can respond to accordingly. State Health and Human Services Department, emergency medical services, disaster response planning, public health initiatives, community safety programs. So if you're public health or maybe even EMS, go to the Health and Human Services Department. There's funding opportunities there for you probably at one point or another point through the year. And then State Department of Education is about safety improvements for schools, for training, mental health support. So a great place for law enforcement to help find projects that are going to keep the schools safe and help their response times. That is another great area to go. So these are your state areas. And again, at the end of this presentation, if you want, I'll go back to them so you can capture these screens too. So let's move to the third part, grant writing mindset. So what type of a mindset do you need to write grants? First, clarity of purpose. So what does that mean? It means defining your goals, your objectives, and the purpose of your project in a clear manner. Articulate why is this important, how it's going to address a specific need or problem within your community. It's got to be a clear and compelling vision that is only going to make this grant application look stronger. So I always say, what's the problem? How big of a problem is it? How is the project going to solve the problem? Time, money, liability reduction, life saving. How is it going to be implemented strategically over a year? And how much is it going to cost? Clarity of purpose. Persuasive communication, strong written and verbal communication skills. You need to effectively convey your project's merits. Talk in an active voice, not a passive voice. Invest in software like Grammarly, or leverage something like a Chat GPT to help you figure out how to say what you want to say, and then optimize it with your own voice. Don't let it do all the work for you. Work with those types of programs and softwares to create your voice in a way that compels others. Craft a persuasive narrative that highlights the significance of the initiative, the impact it's going to make, the benefits it's going to bring. Again, how is the project going to solve the problem? Research and data. A lot of times, this is an area I see that could be stronger. So you're going to want to research and have research that backs your project. You might feel you have a problem, but you're going to need data that shows it. Data, statistics, evidence that's going to demonstrate the need. That's the key. It's not a matter of, I know I need the need. I know I need the need. This is why I need the need. And here's the data that supports why I need the need. Informed, evidence-based approach only increases your credibility, and it's going to enhance your narrative, and it's going to enhance the chances of getting the money. Engagement between the stakeholders. Engage with the stakeholders likely to be impacted or have an interest in your project. So who's going to be impacted? Maybe it's different businesses, maybe it's different individuals. Build that relationship with them. Collaborate with the community members, local organizations, government agencies, potential funders. You want to build these relationships. And in fact, the more relationships you build, the more pieces on the chessboard, if you will, you'll have to win the game and get the money. So the more local support for the project increases your chances of getting the grant. Sometimes local support might mean getting more money locally to fund the project too. You got to demonstrate a broad community involvement that's going to support, and it'll only strengthen the application and the justification. Skills, grant writing skills. So develop strong grant writing skills. I recommend taking a grant class. It's going to increase your ability to explain what you're looking to do, why you're looking to do it, what's going on currently that's making you want to have this plan implemented, and what you expect to do, how it's going to solve the problem. Understand the requirements of the application. So you want to really read the requirements and follow them to the letter. You have to tailor your proposal accordingly. You might do a grant for one grantor and then work on the second grant. You might have to reconfigure everything you said on the first grant because the second grant wants all that information in a different format. Articulate the project's budget, your implementation, your strategies, and how you're going to sustain this project going forward. Emotional intelligence. Understand and navigate the emotions and motivations of the individuals involved in the application process. Understand, what does that grantor want to see from you that's going to make them write a check? Understand what they want. Develop empathy, active listening, really listen to what they put in print and have a conversation with them and listen to what they're telling you that they want to see from you when you write your application and justification paper. Build rapport with them. Make this a long-term relationship where you can go back to them every year. These are people that can make your life a lot easier by closing gaps in your budget. Emotional intelligence is going to help you effectively communicate, address the concerns they want to see from you, and build this relationship long-term. Always talk to these grantors. Don't just send an application in blindly. Have as many conversations with them as you can. Lastly, be resilient and persistent. This process is challenging. It's competitive. It requires a lot of stamina. You need to be resilient with your mind. You need to be persistent. You're going to get no's. You have to go through the no's to get the yeses. You're going to get rejections. Every rejection leads to the next possible yes. So be prepared to hear those no's. Use feedback from previous applications to improve future proposals. You need to adapt, refine your approach. You're not going to be perfect at this the first go around. In fact, you're never going to be perfect at it. This is going to be something you're going to have to build skill, just like your job. The first day you're on your job versus today, I'm sure you've grown. This is something you're going to grow into as well. But you need to ensure you remain committed to the goals. The goal has to be so important, you're willing to be resistant, resilient, persistent, and work through those no's to get to that yes. So before I open this up to questions, I want to call you to action. I don't want you to leave here without taking some form of action. So the first thing I want you to do is decide to act. Decide, you know what? This hour was worthwhile. I learned enough about this process that I can do this, because everyone on this call can do this. You have to also know your outcome. What do you want to get done? I want X. Great. Know your why. Why do you want X? The drive is in the why. The why is big enough. Your how will come, and your how is taking massive action. So what does massive action look like to you? Start a funding division or a funding team. Master the grant funding game. Come back to our classes. I do free classes every month. I have a YouTube channel with videos. You'll have the link at the end. Go watch the videos. I do social media posts every week. Sign up for our social media. I'm always sharing tips and advice on how to play this grant game. Always pursue wanting to become a student of this game. Build a team though. Get a team at your agency. Maybe it's 2, 3, 5, 7 people. I don't know how big your agency is, but you want to have a team to focus on that. Build out or invest in high quality grant info. So you can build out grant info based on the information I gave you earlier. You can also buy grant information. And in the coming weeks, we're going to have access for you to access grants. We're going to have a grant database coming out in a matter of weeks. So by coming to this event, you're going to be on our mailing list. If you're not on our mailing list, go to our website and sign up. Because when we launch it, you can be notified, register, and have access to all this grant data. But you want to build a grant list based on your city, county, region, or state. And if you're a business, you want to have grant information based on the equipment, software, or training you provide. You can also hire a consultant. I have agencies and businesses that hire my company to consult with them on how to be better at playing this grant game. And we do classes. We do free ones and we do paid ones. If you want to take a deeper dive into this, come to our paid class. We take this hour and it's about a 5 to 10 hour program where we really teach you the ins and outs of this. But you can always hire a consultant, a strategy, or a coach to learn how to be better at this game. Also, then you got to notice your results. So so you're taking action and some of the results are working and some maybe aren't working as good as you like. Remember, you can't manage what you don't measure. So always notice, am I closer to my goal or am I farther away? And if I'm farther away, what do I need to do to get closer? And then last but not least, if you need to, change your approach. Change your approach if necessary. What does that mean? Based on your assessment of your progress, you may need to work on strategies or belief. This is a game that is just as much mental as physical. I find most of the time the grant game is 80% mental and 20% mechanical, meaning applying for the grants. But it's 80% is persistence, learning, willing to make the phone calls, willing to set the time aside to do the work. But remember, if you hit a plateau or you're not hitting your targets, that's the time to ask for help. And again, you can contact us anytime. You've been to our class, and we're going to be doing this class more and more. This is the first time we've done this specific new content. So you're the first ones to see it. We're going to be doing this class over and over. Come back. Or again, sign up for our social media. So if you want to get a hold of me anytime, or you want to follow what we're presenting to the marketplace, this is where you go. You can call me at 630-877-3130 anytime. You can email me at mazamore@dynamic-international.net. We have a website. You can go to our website, sign up for our newsletters and our social media posts, or you can follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. YouTube, you get all the video content. Website, you'll have all the video content as well. The social media, you'll get our weekly post about strategies and techniques, not just in the grant world, but the business world, as well as the personal development world. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is open it up for questions here. Let's see here. Do you know what funding ranges are in these grants? Great question. These grants that I gave you an example of are across the board. Anywhere from 4 to 7 figures is what to expect. So if you have a $4,000 or $5,000 or an $8,000 project, there are grants that will fit those absolutely. Private money typically is a little bit smaller. I see it funding usually anywhere from 4 to 6 figure range, maybe 7 figures if it's a big enough project. Federal grants, typically you can get up to a 7-figure project. States, usually 4 to 5 to 6 figures. It's going to vary. Really, what it's mostly about, it's about, does the project solve the problem? Is the problem big enough that it needs to be solved? Has it been properly quantified? How is the plan laid out where it's going to get implemented? That's what matters the most. The dollar amount, not as much, but that's why you want to have a conversation with them first. Talk to them. Say, this is what we're looking to do, grantor. This is why we're looking to do it. This is kind of the range of what we're looking for in money. Is this even viable for an organization like yours? They might say, you know what, we can't fund the whole thing, but we can fund part of it. And sometimes you might have to attach multiple grants together. And that's okay. In this market, I see people usually using 2, 3, 4 grants sometimes for a project that's big. For the smaller projects, yeah, 1 grant will cover it. Do you recommend regional grant applications? Absolutely. I like grants that solve problems in people's backyards. Those are my favorite grants to pursue. So if there's a regional grant, it's definitely good because that means there's less competition. AFG. Every fire and EMS agency in the entire country can apply for AFG. The Homeland Security Grant Program, every agency pretty much fits into one of those 3 grants they have. Private grants are regional. Private grants might be a city, might be a county. San Diego is an example. San Diego has a community foundation that only funds projects in San Diego County. So if you're a city in San Diego County, you can apply to get funding from that foundation. Other rural areas might cover 5, 10, 20 counties, but it's rural. So there might even be less people in those 20 counties than there is in San Diego. So I like regional grants. I like private money is by far my favorite. Now there's only a small room. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute or raise your hand. Whatever I can do to answer. What about multi applicants? Yes, regional. So if you have a regional response, and maybe that's what you were asking. If you were, I apologize. Regional teams, it's a multiplier. Grantors love multi-jurisdictional responses. They feel, no pun intended, they get more bang for the buck. So if you are a 5-town or a 2-town or a 3-town regional organization, apply as that. One of those organizations will take lead, but apply on behalf of that regional response team, and it's a multiplier. You have a better chance of getting funded. Absolutely.
Do you know the turnaround time for most grant applicants if it's a multi-recipient grant application?
Great question. It varies on the grant. I find private money, because you can apply at any time of the year more often than not with private money. Either private money is ongoing or it's like every quarter you can apply. Usually you have an answer within 90 days, 30 days to 90 on average. You have your money from anywhere from 90 to 180 days. Your state grants and federal grants, they have that window. And usually the response depends on how many people applied. But sometimes you might hear back after 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. What I recommend is you play the federal game, you play the state game, you play the private game, you play them all. And you just keep applying until you get money. It's a numbers game. Don't send in one application, then wait. Send in an application, work on your next one. Send in the application, work on the next one, and keep working on the grants until you have all your money. It's a good problem if you get more than enough money because you applied for multiple grants. You can then either expand your program or return the money, or find out if you can use that leftover money for something else if it meets the needs of the grantor, if they're willing to fund it.
So post-award, do you find that some of these grants require reports and maintenance, or is it you get the money and that's one and done?
Federal and state, yes, you're going to be audited. So they're going to want updates. Some private ones do, some don't. That's a great question to ask them when you have that conversation, though. But the private money is really more about solving problems in the backyard. And I'll give you an example. Firehouse Subs has their grant, and Firehouse Subs gives out about $10 million a year, 100 grants a quarter, average grant $25,000. I've seen them go all the way into the 40s lately. It's a 3 to 5 page application. And they don't have a lot of reporting afterwards. Whereas like AFG or the federal government in general, there's a lot of reporting. They want to know a lot of stuff. So it's case by case. It's a great conversational piece to have with the grantor, though.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Great questions. Anybody else have any questions? If you don't, feel free to enjoy your day. This is going to be recorded. Well, we're recording it, but we're going to have it up on our YouTube channel and our website probably in the coming weeks. And we're going to let everyone that was invited to the class be able to see it too, because of these technical Zoom difficulties we had. But if you don't have any other questions, enjoy your day. Be safe. I really appreciate you coming. And if you thought the class was of value, write a review. Write a recommendation, send it to us, and we'd be happy to use your words to bring other people to this class. But I'll keep this room open for another couple minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, really appreciate your time. Stay safe, take care, and hopefully we'll see y'all again.
Thank you. This lesson was very informative.
Great, Kelvin, I appreciate it. I'm glad you were able to come, and I appreciate the fact you came early enough to make sure I got you the link. So,
Thanks.
take care and be safe.
You too.